Yeah, I got emailed a couple weeks ago, and it's like, can you do a talk, Android chat app, 25 minutes? I was like, no way. But then I said, okay, sure, why not? Because Firebase makes everything easy. So this talks about building a chat app in 25 minutes. I've built a few chat apps in my days. I think someone here knows. But right now, I run this app called VenChat. It's top 100 grossing apps on Play Store. So it's a chat app. I'm also a machine learning NLP engineer at Zoom AI. We're a CIX top 20, and we recently partnered up with Skype Teams or Microsoft Teams today. So that's cool. I've been doing Android development for a long, long time. Since the UI was totally different, and I do a lot of Dart development. Anyone do any Dart here? No, I expected so. It's growing, it's growing. So I do a lot of Dart development. I'm a Google developer expert, which just means that I can talk about this stuff. So a chat app in 25 minutes. Now the star is, technically we're not gonna go file a new project. I'm assuming you've built the UI because we all know how long building UI on Android takes. So I'm not going to spend building UIs and stuff. But the whole idea is we're going to be connecting the dots and assume your UI is ready and assume you got some sort of authentication done. If you don't, I'm sure there was a talk here already about Firebase authentication. If there wasn't, check it out. It's super easy to just plug and play your auth if you don't have any backend experience, and you get all that rolling really easily. So what is Firebase database, right? So what's interesting is usually when you build chat apps, so when I had to build my chat app, what I did, and this was before Firebase real-time database, and also because the database didn't actually meet one of my needs, which we'll get to later, because there is a pro and con in building something so quickly. One cool thing about using Firebase database is there's no backend needed, right? If you don't know Node, if you don't know Python or any other sort of backend language, you don't have to worry about it. You can just plug and play into Firebase's system, and you get the power of Google and your app running across the world, and no need to worry about scale. So that's Firebase database. It's a lightweight backend. Has anyone used it here? Couple. Okay, good. So you guys are bored. The rest of them will like this talk. So it's a lightweight backend, super lightweight. It's just like taking big dumps of JSON and throwing it in the cloud and getting it back on the other side. Literally, that's all it is. But what's cool about it, it's really, really fast, and there's a lot of scale. And instead of building your own real-time system where you would use WebSockets, have to worry about reconnection, all that stuff, trust me, that is a big, big problem, especially when you get around people switching Wi-Fi networks and going on public Wi-Fi where WebSockets all flaky. Google engineers are paid for this. They went ahead and they built all this logic for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Free stuff. And it works offline. So how many of you have actually tried to build something like syncs offline? It's a lot of work, right? Yes, Kobo, hey. It's a lot of work. And so with Firebase real-time database, you get all that stuff for free. So we're going to start, assume all your UI is done. I'm not going to live code, because I've tried live coding in the past and it always breaks down. Something always happens, so I've just decided to take a lot of screenshots and just go step by step. And plus that makes it fit in 25, because I don't want to start Gradle and Android Studio. That would take 25 minutes on its own. So you get Android, you go to console.firebase.google.com. It's a long URL, or just search Firebase on Google, will be the first link, right? Create a new project. When you create a new project, you're faced with this dialog where you have to name your project and where you're located, right? Where you want your server to be. So AndroidTO, I named it, and I said, all right, great, country is United States. I don't think there's Canada there. No one knows Canada. So once you hit that, you're faced with a dashboard here. You get a bunch of cool stuff. I'm sure you guys have seen this dashboard in the previous talk. If you haven't, here's the dashboard. You can set up authentication. You can set up database. You can do storage, right? So in your chat app, as you build it, you can, if you want people uploading selfies or other types of pictures, you can just add Firebase storage really easily. If you have a web app and you want to host it, don't want to host it on Heroku or anything, and you want to host it for free, put more of your stuff on Google. Go to hosting and just upload it right there, and good, you have a static web page host. If you have a mobile app, which we are, going to do. If you want to do testing, like automated testing, then you can upload your stuff to Test Lab, which is really cool. And then they have their own competitor of Fabric, which is all right. I like it. Then you can do push notifications, remote configurations, dynamic links, and if you want to make some money, you can do AdMob, which ads are not a perfect way to make money. So anyways, in the middle, you got this database right here, and this is an empty database, obviously, right? You have this null thing there. So that the way Firebase works is it's essentially, and it took me a bit to wrap my head around, because unlike when you think of a NoSQL database, you think of Mongo, right? Where you have this collections and you're storing documents in collections and you can query them. Firebase is more like a big JSON file that you're just manipulating at really high speeds, right? So there's no real concept of like tables or collections and stuff like that. It's just a big JSON document that you write and delete, create, delete, do updates to, right? So the way you navigate around that is doing like a JSON notation, right? Main dot foo dot blah, blah, blah. So you can, once you have this, it's good to go. The next thing you do is time to integrate it. So the easiest way to integrate it is using Gradle, and then you hit sync, and then you come back later, half an hour later. So you do com Google Firebase, and then right now the version is 9.8. This is the simplest step. Once you're done that, what I usually do is I just go in and just copy some snippets, and I paste it into my code just to see it working. So here, this is how easy it is to actually talk to a Firebase database. You get a reference of your database, so you can only have one database in Firebase. So if you have this, if you looked at the previous screenshot right here, that's one database, and everything is partitioned around that. So I have this database called VenChat962, and then all my data is going to be underneath that database. So when I do Firebase database.get instance, I'll get that instance to that database. Great. And now what I can do is I can get a reference to a node here. So I'll go database.get reference messages. And that's just like this big array in my database, assuming I have data there. And then I can add a value to it, right? I can go myref.setValue, hello world. Now, these 3 lines, what you've done is essentially, if you come from SQL, you've done something like open connection, find whatever table, and then get that value and then update it, right? So update into, I don't know, I've forgotten SQL. So you do all that. And then you can also store, what's neat about it is they're handling a lot of persistence for you. So you can just like store a Java object, like it's a POJO object, so you can, which we'll get to, we'll have a chat object. And you can just store that in, and that's really cool. So one of the other cool things that you can build, not just a chat app, that's not only what Firebase's database is good for, is something like a collaborative drawing application, right? Imagine instead of sending hello world, you're sending coordinates of pixels and color values, right? All it is just imagine Firebase database as a protocol that you can store stuff and get stuff back in return, and it's being persisted. So what's neat is you can have some sort of node that just deals with the current coordinate of a finger. It's sending all that data back, and you can replay that data back, right, based on the time. And once you hit replay, you can just query it, which I'll show you how, and then just draw it back onto the other guy's screen. So that's cool. And then if you want to read this value, you can add a value event listener. And the value event listener is basically whenever you're making, whenever there's a change made on that node, it is going to update it. So here we have myref.addValueEventChange. Again, if you go back, the way you got myref was database.getReference. So technically, you can call this database.getReference updates, right? If you're building like a Facebook type feed and updates, and then you can go myref.onValueEventChangeListener. Every time there's a value change to that reference node, you'll get a post back, and then here you can do whatever. Spawn an async task or whatever, update your UI, store it locally, all that fun stuff. And then if something happens uncancelled, it's like there's a network error or whatever. Super simple, super easy. And then this is what I think is like the coolest thing, is the persistence layer. Instead of spending weeks trying to implement your own persistence, you can just do Firebase get instance, set persistence enabled. right? And what that does is it tells the library, okay, I want to persist everything that I'm talking about. So I can get a reference to scores here, and I can go keep synced. And then what that's going to do is, if I call, for example, order by value, limit to last for, so here I'm building a query, right? I'm doing, order by this, limit by 4, and I'm going to get all the scores that match that query. What's neat is, if I'm offline, Firebase is still going to execute that query and get the last 4 items that it has locally from a local database. So this is really nice if you're building even a chat app, right? You can get the last 30 messages even if the user's offline. And then if you were to write, Firebase would store that write, and once the network's connected, it will seamlessly, without you having to call refresh, it would automatically connect, send a message up to the server, and your message is sent. So that handles all that really, really nicely. So that's something I like a lot. When I started playing with Firebase, I was like, okay, that's really cool, and I can build some really quick apps that I just have to worry about the UI, and the entire backend persistence layer, all that stuff is handled by Firebase. So in summary, it's one-line integration via Gradle. Writing is easy, reading is easy. If you look at the documentation, you can do a lot of cool stuff. Now, you have to model your data the correct way, right? And that's one of the more difficult things, and I think that's the same difficult thing if you go to Mongo or anything from a more relational world. You can't, store IDs and stuff. You're going to be doing a lot of queries. So you have to really think about, this is a real-time database. How do I model my data to be a real-time? Because imagine when you get callbacks in something like limit to last, you don't want to just get IDs back. You want to get the actual object back. So you don't have to make another call, another real-time call to get usernames. That's just going to screw things up terribly for you. Don't want to do that. And then offline sync is easy. Again, if your data is modeled properly, then offline sync is super cool for you. But all this is cool, but how do I really integrate this into my application? So there's another great thing called Firebase UI database. Has anyone used this before? Perfect. So this is actually by Firebase, and I actually didn't even know this existed till an hour ago. No, I actually didn't know this existed for a while, and I'm like, oh crap, I've been doing all this. I mean, it saved me a lot of work, but at the same time, the thing I hate doing is building adapters, building recycler views, all that nonsense. After doing Android for so long, I hate that. So I just wanted someone else to do the work for me. I think I'm becoming more of a manager now. So I found this thing called Firebase UI, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. They have all these UI bindings for me already. And this is for Firebase UI database, but there's also a Firebase UI storage. So this is pretty cool. If you want to use the storage thing, if you use Firebase storage, which is basically a wrapper around Google storage, Google Cloud Storage, you can upload your images to the cloud. And what's neat is, using Firebase UI storage, it's a Picasso and I think Glide, or Glide and I think Picasso add-on, a transformer or whatever, for it, so that you can just pass in the ID to your Google Cloud Storage file, and it will automatically fetch it, cache it, and do all that work. So you don't have to actually do another fetch and build a URL out yourself, deal with all that. Firebase UI storage is handling all that for you. So anyways, going back to database, you plug Firebase UI database in and wait another 30 minutes. And it's an official Firebase tool. It offers adapters and utilities. So there's a bunch of other really nice things in it. And it handles all the boilerplate code. So like I said, no need to worry about building adapters, recycler view, stuff, any of that. So, hello? So if you have a Firebase database like this, so I have my root node here, which is called something weird. And each ID, so that KHM stuff is my unique ID, is my node ID here. And then I have a name, a text, and a user ID, right? So I have, okay, this user ID is 1, the text is hello there everyone, and Sam wrote hello there everyone, Larry wrote, Sam, you're certainly Google's top employee. Wow, this is like a secret conversation. Blah, blah, blah. So imagine you have this data model like this. You can have tons of other stuff here. So once you have this, the first thing you would do is build a chat object that mimics your data. Now there's a few notes here that I keep forgetting, so I wrote down here. I was wanting to remember. Let me see. Where was it? Right. So something that I always get confused about is coming from like a JSON world. So your names have to match. So your get name has to match the property there. So name. It also has to match UID, and it also match text. Now the constructor, you need to specify a default constructor here. So public chat is empty, but you need to have that there. And that's what basically the Firebase tool is going to look at and generate all this Firebase boilerplate logic on top. The other thing is that, actually those are the only two things, right. So once you have this, you have your chat model defined, you're good to go. Okay, so you've almost built this chat app here. You have the UI, now you have all these tools plugged in, and you wrote your first code towards a real-time chat app. Next thing you gotta do, well, using Firebase UI, it's simple, just like how we did before. We can go Firebase get instance, .get reference, and here's what's neat about it. Now, if you wanna send this chat message to the cloud, you just go new chat, type in, fill out your constructor. So the constructor was what? Name, user ID, and message. So I go name, user ID, and message. Hello, Firebase UI world. And then I go ref.push.setValue. And that's it. What it's done behind the scenes is it's taking the Java object, figured out, okay, which fields or what, created a JSON value of it, and sent it to the cloud and synced it. Now, if someone was listening to it, so ref.limit to last 5 messages, what's neat is you can get the value and you can cast it right to the class. So you don't have to do json.parse or anything like that. You just grab chat message and you have your chat object here. So super simple, you have your POJO file, then you can pass it into your adapter and all that work. Personally, again, like I said, I don't like building adapters, so we can go one step forward. Plus we're running tight on time, right? Because we said 25 minutes. So here's your list view, right? I think everyone knows this. Or these days now you would use something like database binding, Android binding. Then you get a reference to your database. So here, this is like, we're getting there. Imagine your activity main has all your layout already built. So we get your list view, we get a reference to your database. The third thing we do is we go madapter equals new Firebase list adapter, and you pass in the chat, right? And now this is the coolest thing. We don't have to write a bunch of queries to fetch our objects, sync it, and all that stuff. Firebase list adapter is automatically doing all that work for you, right? So you have, what you can do is in your pivotal tracker, you can see this is a 5-point story, and then just do it, and come back, go get coffee, go like do whatever you want, and be like, yeah, I did a lot of work, I built the whole chat app. And then you can go set adapter, pass in your adapter, and really you have it done, right? It's done, it's working. If you look at the constructors for Firebase, you pass in the context, you pass in the class that you're creating, so chat.class, and then you pass in a reference to layout. Now, if you want a more customized layout here, it's just using the default 2-line list item. But if you want a custom layout, then you just have to extend Firebase list adapter, and perfect. You have to extend Firebase list adapter and add your own UI stuff to it, right? Simple, straightforward. And then now a good chat app is not only read, it's also write. So here I create a edit text or grab a reference to it, and then I have a send button here, find view by ID, grab my send button, on click listener. All I do is I have that reference to the database up there. I go ref.push, set value, I create a new chat object, pass in the user ID, pass in the name, and I pass in the message. Then all I do is I clear the input box, and then that's it, right? Yes, that's it. That's the app. That's your entire chat app, right? There's nothing more to it. I'm confused too because I thought there would be more, but there isn't. That's it. That's how simple this is, right? And so when you want to build this is awesome. So if you're, yeah. So anyways, and then obviously on destroy you do a cleanup, and that's just going to handle all that stuff for you. Now, like I said, if you want to handle offline persistence, underneath the reference declaration, just do set persistence enable, and then automatically when you load this application up, it will populate the last X messages, whatever, 30 messages. So is this good for you? This was really fast. You can't, you're saying, okay, then I can build WhatsApp in a day. Sure, sure, or not. The pro is it's simple, it's easy, and it's fast, right? Which is what we saw in less than 20 minutes. We just built it. You can actually copy and paste this code and you can be like, great, I'm done. It's backed by the power of Google Cloud. So what's neat about it is if someone is using this in like Germany, local Germany data centers will connect to it using Google CDN and they'll get a super fast experience. Because Google's handling all the replication of the database, all that stuff for you. You don't have to worry about it. So really you're getting the international scale here. And it's used in production everywhere. Tons of people, not just for chat apps, but for a lot of stuff. Because really, a chat is you're just sending data across, right? So you can send, like I said, values for finger coordinates. Games use this all the time. You can do a lot of cool stuff here. Now that's the pro. The con is really one real con, and there's no real way to intercept the data easily. And this is going back to why I didn't use it in my chat app. My requirement was when I have to intercept all messages and do processing on them. Check for spam, check if the user has enough funds to send this message, all that stuff. So you really can't there's no Firebase database server real-time fetch. There's a way to pull your messages, but this is real-time, polling would be slow. So that's really the only con that I see because a lot of business rely on this, the idea to intercept the message and do processing on it. For example, if you're building a bot, right, you can't really build a bot using Firebase real-time database because a message is sent, unless the bot's running on your Android phone that you've plugged in all the time, you can't really do this. So there's no way to intercept this message on the server. That's really the only con I find. Other than that, thank you. That was 20-something minutes. We built the whole app. And I hope that's useful, and thank you.